Imagine being 14 years old and having a teacher who hates you so much, she changes your grades, sabotages your opportunities, and tries to humiliate you in front of the whole class. That was my 9th grade year. And I wasn't about to let her get away with it. It was 9th grade honors English. I'd had plenty of teachers before. Some loved me, some got frustrated with my laziness, but none had ever outright disliked me until her. Let's call her Mrs. Thompson. From day one I could feel the tension. It wasn't the usual teacher annoyed at a student kind of thing. No, this was different. She didn't like me as a person. And one of the biggest reasons, I was an athlete. Not just in one sport, I played 3. Which meant I was gone from class a lot for games and tournaments. Sure, I also missed school for academic events, math competitions, science fairs, quiz bowl, but that didn't bother her nearly as much. No, sports was her real trigger. You want proof? She had this policy. Whenever we had a long away game that would keep players out late, she'd double the homework that was due the next day. And get this, she didn't even check homework every single day. But she always checked it the day after those away games. Coincidence? Yeah, right. It didn't take me long to realize she was making a point that screamed, "You think your sports are more important than my class? We'll see about that." But homework wasn't the only battlefield. When it came to grading essays, something strange happened. Other students would turn in papers marked up with red ink everywhere. Suggestions, grammar corrections, feedback, and still get 90s. Me? I'd turn in a paper with no red marks at all and get a 72. Maybe an 81 if I was lucky. One day, after getting yet another suspiciously low grade on a paper I knew I'd done well on, I asked her about it. Her response: "You're only doing 70% of your ultimate capability. Other students are doing 90% of theirs." I was stunned. Wait, so my paper can be better than someone else's and still get 20 points lower? She didn't even hesitate. Yes. And here's the kicker. The very same year she was supposedly unimpressed with my writing, she recommended me for an advanced writing class a year early. So which was it, Mrs. Thompson? Was I bad at writing, or was I so good you couldn't admit it? Fast forward to the end of the school year. She announces an extra credit opportunity. We had to go see a local college's production of Antigone, write a 2,500-word paper tying it to what we'd studied in class, and turn in our ticket stub and playbill as proof. The catch? The play was only showing Friday through Sunday, and the paper was due Monday. No problem, right? Wrong. That Monday, I was scheduled to miss school all day for the biggest academic competition of the year. The one you had to qualify for by placing top 10 in a previous event. An excused absence. One that I told her about a full week in advance. For separate times, she told me the same thing. Turn it in first thing Tuesday morning. So that's what I planned to do. Friday night, my mom, who also worked at the school, rushed to pick me up from basketball practice, drove me home so I could shower and change, then rushed me downtown to the play. 2 hours later, she picked me up again and we drove home. Saturday, I finished my paper. Saved the file in the afternoon. Metadata doesn't lie. Monday, I went to my competition, took first place in one category, second place in another. Felt great. Tuesday morning, 7 a.m., I walk into her room before basketball workouts, paper in hand. She looks at me and refuses to take it. "It's late," she says. "I don't recall ever telling you to turn it in Tuesday." I froze. What? She told me that 4 times. Then came her reasons. 1. Another student at the competition turned theirs in Monday, but they lived across the street from the school. 2. My mom worked there, so I could have sent it with her. As if my mom didn't have her own classes to teach. 3. I could have worked on it Monday night, except the whole point was to have it done over the weekend before the competition. I even told her, check the file. Last saved Saturday afternoon. Didn't matter. No credit. I was out $25 for the ticket, hours of time, and my mom had been stressed for nothing. That was the moment I realized this wasn't bad luck. It wasn't a misunderstanding. She was targeting me, and if she wanted a war, well, I wasn't going to just roll over and take it. What she didn't know was that before the year ended, I was going to hand her the most humiliating defeat of her career. After that late paper incident, I tried to keep my head down. Not because I was scared, but because I wanted to make it to the end of the year without giving her any more ammo. But it didn't matter. She still found ways to make her point. Homework assignments suddenly seemed heavier when I was busy with games or competitions. Essay feedback? Still non-existent. Classroom tone? Still icy. It wasn't just strictness. It was personal. Fast forward to the last day before finals. The atmosphere in class was weird. That bittersweet school's almost over kind of energy. Out of nowhere, Mrs. Thompson leaned against her desk and asked, "What's your biggest wish?" Some students gave silly answers. A new car. A trip to Europe. When it was my turn, I didn't miss a beat. I wished for an A on the exam. The room went silent for half a second. Then she laughed. Not the friendly kind of laugh. The kind that drips with mockery. "Yeah, and I wish for $1 million and not to have to deal with you anymore." The class chuckled nervously. Me? I just sat there calm, but inside, I was done. Here's the thing about Mrs. Thompson. She prided herself on being the toughest teacher in the school. She loved telling people that nobody had ever scored an A on her final exam. Not once. And sure, the exam was challenging. 100 multiple-choice questions covering everything from Shakespeare to grammar rules. But the real kicker was the bonus question. 5 extra points. Always some variation of, "What was your favorite part of this class? What did you learn? What will you take away from this experience?" Most students wrote a few polite sentences to butter her up, hoping for those bonus points. But me? I saw it as my last best chance to say everything I'd been holding back. Finals were always run differently. Teachers didn't proctor their own exams, so they could answer questions for other classes. That morning I sat down, got my test, and started working. 20 minutes later, I was done with the 100 multiple-choice questions. I knew most of them: cold literature, grammar, all of it. Which meant I had the next 40 minutes before the 1-hour mark rule kicked in. Plenty of time for my real mission. The question sat there, innocent enough. What was your favorite part of this class? What did you learn? I took a deep breath and started writing. I didn't sugarcoat a thing. Honestly, I'm not sure I learned much in this class. You never gave me feedback on my writing, so if I improved, it wasn't because of your guidance. My favorite part of the class is it ending, because it means I don't have to deal with your constant disrespect and bias anymore. You targeted me for being an athlete, you graded me on potential instead of performance, and you manipulated assignments to make my life harder. I even brought up the extra credit incident, how I told her 4 times about missing Monday, how I turned the paper in on Tuesday as she'd agreed, and how she'd refused it anyway. I ended it with, "You are by far the worst teacher I've ever had, and I truly believe this school is worse off with you." Teaching the entire 9th grade. The 1-hour mark finally hit. Out of 110 students, I was the only one to stand up and leave right at that moment. Felt oddly satisfying. I handed in my exam, walked into the breezeway outside, and waited for my mom, who was proctoring another final, to finish up. I was sitting there calm as could be, until I saw her. Mrs. Thompson. She was walking toward me, holding my exam, tears in her eyes. She didn't say much. Just, "Meet me in the principal's office." Then she stormed off. I sat there for a second processing. Okay, so she read it. A few minutes later, she came back, with my mom in tow, and marched us both into the principal's office. By the time we sat down, she was crying, screaming, and literally choking up every few sentences. She tried to paint me as disrespectful, insubordinate, a problem student. But here's the thing. Everything I'd written in that bonus question, I could back it up. For the next 45 minutes, I calmly laid out every single thing she'd done that year. The grading bias, the double homework after away games, the extra credit trap. My mom, who'd heard most of this before, just sat there nodding. Finally, the principal turned to Mrs. Thompson and asked, "How much was the question worth?" She sniffled. 5 bonus points. And the principal, without missing a beat, said, "Then just, don't give him the bonus points." So I walked out of there with a 98 on the final instead of a 103. I'd only missed 2 actual questions. And here's the best part, every other student in her class got the bonus points. The next highest grade after mine? An 81. Mrs. Thompson thought she'd gotten the last laugh. She hadn't. because I still had one more surprise for her. A few days before final grades were due, I logged into the school's grading system just to see how things stood. And that's when I noticed something weird. One of my assignments from way back in September, an essay I'd gotten a perfect 100 on, suddenly showed up as a 90. Now here's the kicker. This wasn't some correction or missing work situation. That assignment had been graded months ago, locked in and untouched until now. I told my mom immediately. She's not the type to jump to conclusions, but the look on her face said it all. This wasn't an accident. Mom, she's trying to drop your grade before report cards go out. I didn't have proof yet, but it fit the pattern. And I knew Mrs. Thompson had the kind of petty streak that would totally do this. We decided not to confront her directly. Instead, we went to the principal. Now remember, the principal had already sat through my 45-minute list of grievances during finals week. So when my mom calmly explained what happened, his eyes narrowed. Principal, grades from earlier in the year should never be changed unless there's a documented reason. I'll look into this. That was principal speak for. I already know she's guilty. When the final grades came out, mine was still an A. The mysteriously dropped essay score? Restored to the original 100. Mrs. Thompson? She didn't make eye contact with me once during the last day of school. She'd lost that round. But this wasn't over, not by a long shot. Over the summer, the school district quietly implemented a new rule. Teachers could no longer teach all sections of a single grade level. Translation: Mrs. Thompson, who'd had the entire 9th grade to herself for years, was suddenly sharing the job with another teacher. She still had her honors classes, but not all of them. It was the first crack in her empire. I moved on to 10th grade, then 11th, then senior year. Every once in a while, I'd hear stories from younger students about how Mrs. Thompson was tough or strict. But I also noticed something. The complaints were getting louder. The parents were getting more involved. And the administration? Less patient. 2 years after I graduated, I was back home on break when I bumped into an old teacher at the grocery store. We caught up for a bit, and then casually she said, "Oh, did you hear about Mrs. Thompson?" Apparently, the administration had been building a file on her for years. Complaints from students, parents, even other staff members. And finally, they had enough to let her go. She didn't retire. She didn't transfer. She was fired. When I heard the news, I didn't feel the joy I thought I would. Don't get me wrong, I wasn't sad. But it wasn't about revenge anymore. It was about the fact that nobody else would have to go through what I did. No more freshmen getting their confidence crushed because a teacher decided they weren't worth the time. Sometimes you don't have to destroy someone to win. You just have to survive them. Keep your receipts, stay calm, and let the truth do the work for you. Because the truth? It's patient. And in the end, it always wins. If you enjoyed this story, check out my other real-life revenge stories.